Comparing process improvement approaches. Traditional approaches include process improvements being project team driven and not owner driven. Certain waste streams are unrecognized and others are accepted. Corrective actions are poorly designed and implemented. In a high-performance organization, all key processes have been defined per customer requirements. Work teams support project teams via daily continuous improvement. All leaders possess process improvement skills and hone them over time. By this point in time, if we had truly learned from the past, the three traditional process improvement approaches shown above should be distant memories. Unfortunately, all three are still alive and well, too well in some cases, in most organizations. For example, we have actually regressed in recent years away from a whole systems approach to process improvement. We are now once again primarily focusing on project team-based improvement. While this approach will give you pockets of excellence and some significant step change improvements in performance, it is not sufficient to help you reach a level of sustained process excellence. What is worse is how we tend to accept certain forms of waste in our organizations. Most managers would, of course, deny that they are doing this, but when you look at the approaches they use to identify and reduce waste, it's pretty easy to see how they are allowing certain forms of waste to remain in place. For example, in many organizations, it's okay to be wasteful as long as you stay under budget as you do so. In other words, if you have enough waste built into your cost center budgets, it's okay to be wasteful. You'll stay out of trouble. You won't get the attention. We also fail to measure the effectiveness of the corrective actions we put in place. This might seem like a minor problem, but when you consider the potential ineffectiveness of the root cause analysis and corrective action writing processes that you use, there might be more corrective action waste out there than you realize. How do you know if your fixes worked? How often do you have to revisit your list of root causes because fixing the initial ones you found did not make the problem go away? How waste-free is your problem-solving process? The first step to make in seeing all work as a process lies in requiring all process owners, leaders at any level in the organization, to define their processes and to measure and reduce the waste that exists in the key processes they own. Are your leaders prepared to do this? Can they engage their people in doing so? How will errors and failures be systematically reduced? Work processes we ignore. Work processes we ignore include meetings, leadership development, annual and strategic planning, internal and external customer recognition, internal and external customer satisfaction, performance review, performance measurement, email and text processing, project development, and job design and time utilization. Before you get defensive and try to tell me that you do try to improve the processes that you own, consider this list of work processes that are commonly ignored. When I say ignored, however, I don't mean that we aren't concerned about their effectiveness or that we don't talk about the need to make them more effective. I simply mean it is a rare case when systematic approaches are used to make these processes leaner and more value-added. When we do attempt to improve these processes, it's often by exception versus plan. We deal with big problems when they come up, but there's no ongoing plan to make the process more effective over time. We are not systematically trying to make these work processes excellent. In order to satisfy my definition of process ownership and improvement, a process owner needs to be able to demonstrate how they use a systematic approach to improve their key processes. Producing a list of consistent system changes that have been put in place to make a process more effective is the easiest way to do this. The best process owners can also provide fact-based evidence, such as leading indicator trend lines, to prove that the system changes actually made a difference. The positive shift in performance is visible. Very few organizations can produce a list of process improvements specific to these above processes. and even fewer can show you process performance trend lines which reflect the degree and rate of process improvement that has occurred. The irony of this situation is twofold. First of all, it's difficult to ask, let alone expect, others to improve their processes when we aren't modeling the behaviors we desire ourselves. Secondly, time is required to do formal process improvement. That said, many of us are quick to say that while we believe in process improvement, we don't have time in our jobs to do it ourselves. In reality, if we actually did improve the above processes that we normally ignore, we would create a lot of time that could be used for our process improvement efforts. Think about it. What percent of the time you invest in meetings is value added? How much time and money could you save if you simply eliminated meeting waste? The process improvement cycle. Define, measure, analyze, improve. Each process should go through this cycle at least once a year. Process improvement is not complicated if we focus on what it is really all about, improving processes. Above you will find 10 different everyday processes listed. We typically take these processes for granted, rarely thinking about the process cycle times, cost, defect and error rates, or customer satisfaction related to them. By the time we retire, we will have invested thousands of hours and dollars in these processes and others like them. How much of that time was wasted? How well does each of these processes work today? More importantly, to what degree have these processes been improved over time? In a high-performance organization, all key processes are reviewed to identify possible improvement opportunities on at least an annual basis. This annual event is usually more of a "are we sure we have identified everything we need to address" step in the larger ongoing improvement effort. Smaller improvements are made as needed, and some larger projects are tabled for future capital budgets and planning events. Such improvement efforts are not typical, however. Can you describe meaningful improvements you have seen made to some of the above 10 processes over the past 3 to 5 years, if at all? We focus too much on the formal improvement teams and forget about the daily process or work teams. We try too hard to hit a home run with a big dollar cost savings project instead of trying to reduce daily waste little by little in a planned way. A much more effective approach is really pretty simple to use. On a daily basis, capture the key counts and costs for your key processes. Typically, 5 to 10 key counts or ratios are captured daily for a given process transaction. In addition to capturing your 5 to 10 key counts and costs, also capture your 5 to 10 key process errors or failures that occurred during the shift. Process-based improvement, directed by process owners daily at all key work processes, is the key to sustained process excellence. How many of your key processes are being consistently defined, measured, analyzed, and improved? Synonyms for improvement. Sometimes it's just a matter of semantics. We are each talking about the same thing, but using different words to do so. For example, on this graphic I've listed 5 words that we can use to describe the repetitive things we do each day: process, task, job, chore, and transaction. One might argue the subtle differences between the terms, but to most people, such differences don't matter. With that in mind, you can consider a process to be the same as a job, task, or transaction: repetitive steps for doing something. The same can be said for the daily problems we experience each day. We can again argue that defects are not as bad as incidents, or that problems are bigger than headaches, but it all depends on who you are and what you are talking about. The middle column represents daily challenges that we want to get rid of, either because they cost us a lot of time or money. Their precursors are shown in the list on the right. Getting rid of the precursors is the ideal thing to focus on. It all starts with defining all, yes, I said all, of your key processes. I've actually been in organizations where all of the key processes have been defined, so I know it's possible to do. Make the list, define key customer requirements, draw the workflow diagrams, and define your process vital signs. Don't feel you have to complete the entire list at once. Begin with the processes that you spend the most time and money on, or that give you the most headaches. We usually know what our problems are. Our challenge here lies in knowing how to minimize or prevent them. There are strategies out there that work quite well, but most people aren't aware of them. Finding the true root causes of your daily problems are not that hard to do as well, but you have to be willing to see them as fixable and not as something you just have to learn to live with. It all begins with tracking those daily errors that are the precursors to your bigger problems.